Hello, I'm Sharon from Sharonatsea Travel. We recently stayed 3 nights in Rome before an amazing Greek Isles cruise. We were super excited to explore all the sights of Rome, and we did as much research as we could, and there were still things we learned along the way. I thought I would share some tips that we found the most helpful and are important to know, and a couple things that really surprised us. So let's dive right into the things that we thought were good tips and were helpful to us. I'm going to start with probably the most useful tip for us, and that was that there were water fountains all over Rome with fresh, clean running water that you could refill your water bottles with. This was so helpful because we went in May and it was really hot and we were sucking down the water all day long. So you will definitely want to bring a refillable water bottle, especially if you are visiting during the summer months. Probably the next most helpful tip for us was don't be afraid to use public transportation. Although many things in Rome are within walking distance, there are times where public transportation can be very convenient. We used the metro, buses, trains throughout our whole stay. We found all the methods of public transportation easy to maneuver, and even though they can be a bit crowded, we never felt unsafe. Next is the topic of identification. In Rome, it is required that if you're stopped by the authorities, that you have to be able to provide proper identification. And for us Americans, that's a passport. The thought of carrying your passport around all day can be a bit unsettling, especially if you need it to board a cruise ship after your pre-cruise visit. And it's worse with all the talk of pickpockets in Rome. We did not want to take any chances, so we carried our passports with us. We heard different stories whether or not a copy of your passport would be acceptable, but we didn't want to take any chances. We kept our passports in a locked back zipper of our crossbody bags and never felt that they were not secure. There are also some sites that will require proper identification to enter or purchase tickets. Also, if visiting the Vatican, which is technically a different country, you will certainly need your passport. We also had to show them when we were buying tickets directly at the Colosseum, so be prepared for these things. Now, I mentioned pickpockets. Yes, they are a real thing in Rome. They prey on the people that are not aware of their surroundings, especially in high traffic areas where people are elbow to elbow, like busy attractions and on the metro and other public transportation. I heard stories on social media about tricks that they use, and we actually saw one in action. We were at the Trevi Fountain and we heard someone yell out, "Pickpocket, pickpocket, pickpocket," 3 times, and everyone, of course, started grabbing their bags and looking all around. Afterwards, we wondered if this was someone warning us of pickpockets or if the yelling of the pickpockets was actually part of the scam, getting people to grasp at their valuables so the pickpockets knew what to target. We found that using crossbody bags with small locks on them kept us feeling pretty secure, and we actually had a code word to say to each other if we felt there might be some suspicious activity close by. Also be wary of who you ask to take a picture. Your phone and camera could disappear before you have a chance to pose and smile. Another thing we heard about was to not accept things like friendship bracelets from people because they want you to buy something once they have it in your hand. This is very common when we cruise in certain cruise ports, so we were very familiar with this. Your natural reaction when someone goes to give you something is to take it. So you have to be a little rude at times and just say, "No, thank you." We actually had a situation like this at the top of the Spanish Steps. Men were giving out roses and a man was trying to give me a whole bouquet of roses, saying he didn't need them anymore, he was done for the evening.
Grazie, no.
No, I give
Grazie, no.
No, thank you.
No, it's okay. You put them there. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
I don't need them. Thank you.
I don't want to. Of course, I declined, and he continued to insist. I continued to decline, and eventually he stopped. Shortly after that, as we began to walk down the steps, the same guy was still doing it, trying to give the roses to other people. Definitely a scam. Now let me share a few more quick tips. The first Sunday of every month, state museums and archaeological sites are free, so they will be very busy. If you are visiting on one of those days, and actually anytime you're going somewhere in Rome, get there early. And when I say early, I don't mean 20 minutes early. I mean an hour and a half early. We got to the Vatican an hour before our tour, which was 30 minutes before it opened. And this was the line down the street. Do you know that you have to pay to use the public toilets in many European countries? It's true. Make sure you have a few euros on hand for the toilets, as they call them there. You will need them, but here's a tip. Many of the sites and restaurants you go to will have free bathrooms. So be sure to take advantage of them when you're there, because if you need to use one in between, you will probably have to pay. Next, watch out for traffic. It can be crazy, especially during the peak season. Cars, scooters, motorcycles, and bicycles, even buses and trams going all over the place, and the streets are full of people walking everywhere. It can get hectic, and you might be looking for signs or checking Google Maps, and you're rushing to get to the next place on your list of things to do. And next thing you know, you're in the middle of the street and the horns are honking at you. Also, be sure to make your hotel reservations months in advance. Actually, about a year out, when they open up for booking, is when you should be making that reservation, especially if you're traveling during the peak season. Prices do become extremely high as it gets closer, and they do sell out. And don't be concerned if they ask to make a photocopy of your passport for everyone in your group. This is normal for Rome hotels. As with any reservation, make sure you bring a hard copy, a printout, as well as a digital copy. This came in handy for our hotel reservation when we originally booked our room for 4, and then they didn't have a room available and gave us 2 rooms for 2 at the same total price. Having the original copy of the reservation saved the day for us. I know you will be taking tons of pictures and video, but there are some historical sites like the Sistine Chapel at the Vatican and the Catacombs de San Callisto, I think that's how you say it, where you cannot take photos. They are not allowed, and they do take that rule seriously. Be aware that when it comes to dining, the closer you are to an attraction, the more expensive the food will be. For us, when it came to eating, we looked online for the closest place that had what we wanted, and we also checked the reviews. Dining in Rome is very different than dining in the US, so make sure to do your research on that subject. Also, make sure you have gelato at some point during your stay in Rome, hopefully more than once. Here's something we learned the hard way. Be sure to download the WhatsApp app if you are taking any tours. Many tour companies communicate via WhatsApp. It is very common in Rome, as well as many European cities. If you watched our recent Rome Colosseum video, that will explain how important that can be. There are other helpful apps such as Google Maps, which is our go-to app when traveling, and Citymapper is popular as well. There are currency conversion apps, apps to tell you where all the restrooms or toilets are, and much more. I will add a list of helpful apps for Rome in the description box below. If you are planning to visit the churches or basilicas, be prepared to cover your knees and shoulders so you don't get turned away. Some places offer cover-ups, and I had brought along a lightweight shrug, this one right here, and this happens to be available in my Amazon store. Do your research so you are prepared. You do not want to miss out on something that you have been looking forward to just because your summer dress is too short or you wore a tank top because it was a hot day. Another thing we noticed that was not enforced was the rule about no sitting on the Spanish Steps. When we were there, it was very disappointing because there were people sitting all around just hanging out on the steps, and you could barely walk up, and it really took away from the experience. We were excited to have espresso in Rome, but it surprised us at the size. We read about the size difference from what you would expect versus what we have at home in the US, but I guess it really didn't hit us until we actually saw it. Our espressos were not only in a small cup, but they were less than half full, and they were only probably about 2 tablespoons at most in the cups. I'm sorry, but give this American a large Americano coffee every time. And lastly, this probably surprised us the most. In the US, cigarette smoking is on the decline, and in almost all public places, it's not allowed. This is not the case in Rome. Cigarette smoking is everywhere, and cigarette butts are all over the streets. Personally, we don't smoke, but if you choose to smoke, that's your business. But it just felt odd that there were so many smokers, and they smoked everywhere, including restaurants, right in the middle of a meal. I was really surprised at the amount of cigarette butts we encountered on the ground, because besides all of the graffiti we saw, most of Rome was actually very clean, even though it's a very populated major city. Before I go, I did mention that I would share a few resources we found helpful for information for our Rome trip. There were many YouTube videos about Rome, but the 2 that we thought had the best current information were RomeWise and Rosier Roma. I guess that's how you say it. Both have a lot of great current updated information to share. I only hope that your trip to Rome is as amazing as ours was. Our memories will last a lifetime, and I hope these tips will help make your experience a little bit better. Hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you're new here to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our new content. Also, go back and watch our 3 videos we made during our recent stay in Rome. Thanks for watching. Remember to travel safe, travel smart, and I will see you in the next video.